Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. This woman is truly an inspiration with what she's done so far in her life. A rewarding career as an occupational therapist, but doesn't stop there. She's done so much, along with guest lecturing, helping students along the way with her occupation. She has written many journals, including travel journals, and has traveled to at least 113 countries on 7 continents. And that's just a side passion of hers. And it's so great to have her back here. Going to learn so much more about what she's done and the inspiration she has for others. Lynette Walsh is here on the program. Welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Just one little correction. It's 122 countries.
Well, I did say at least. So I didn't have the current tally. Oh my gosh. What was the last one you went to?
Let me see. Well, I went on a river cruise from Amsterdam to the Black Sea, and I had been to most of those countries before. And in January, I'm going to go to places like Namibia and places in West Africa. So I'll be, but that's not till January, February.
What is your passion for traveling? What do you get out of it? What's going on there?
Well, I think I'm very curious about other cultures, and I think I would make a lousy missionary because I have such respect for other religions and culture and stuff like that. It's just sort of what makes people tick and how do they respond in their particular environment, and what challenges do they have in those environments. So I've been traveling since I was 16. My mother, she was the same way. She had a wanderlust too. So I think it's fascinating. Just and it worries me a little bit when I see the younger generation so absorbed in their phones and stuff, and they've lost a lot of curiosity about stuff that's around them, and I think that's a pity.
Do you find it exciting when you travel to a new area and you're kind of on your own? You know, you're there. They might speak a different language, but getting to meet the people and having conversations and learning about their culture, is that part of the passion?
Yes, I think so. And I think I'm quite choosy about the companies that I travel with. And usually I'm, with a designated group. So I'm not completely on my own. And I like things that are organized for me, like, a cruise or a land travel where you're with a certain group and there are people there to look after you and make sure that you're with them. I mean, I've been lost a couple of times. That was a bit scary, but I found the group again. So
tell me about that. It sounds exciting and scary at the same time.
Yeah, it was, and partly, and I'm afraid I gave the guide who was supposed to be looking after us a piece of my mind, because one of them in Poland, for instance, she didn't bother to count how many of us were in her group. And I stopped to take a picture of flowers in the market, and I stood up and turned around, and everybody was gone. What I didn't know was that she had gone through a path through the building to the square on the other side. And I didn't get that bit of information. So I'm wandering around for about, 20, 30 minutes. Fortunately, I remembered what she was wearing, because we just got to the city, and we just got off the coach. So we weren't really, we knew one another vaguely, but it wasn't like we'd been together for days and days. So, But I like to try and get the phone number now that we all carry phones. I like to get the guide's phone number, so if I do get lost, then I have a number to call. And on some of the good trips we've had, like on the cruises, when we've gone ashore, there were people at the front of the group, and then there were people at the back of the group, making sure that we were all there. So that's good.
So I want to talk about the food, because you must have enjoyed many different cuisines of many different countries. What was your favorite thing to eat? And then what was the thing that you'll never eat again?
Well, some of my favorite things to eat are more likely to be, I'm not vegetarian, but they are more likely to be vegetarian kinds of things, because you can get some very odd meats and things like that, which aren't so good. I was disappointed with Morocco, because the Moroccan cuisine is famous for being wonderful, but to my mind, they had lots and lots of spices, and if you put too many spices in a dish, then you spoil it. And I think sometimes they did that. They kind of mixed them up too much to where it was barely edible, but that's me. I like spicy food, but not with 5 different very hot spices.
Wow. So you're saying, Lynette, that it was just too spicy?
Well, it was. I've got a good palate, so I can distinguish the different spices. But if there are about 5 or 6 in a dish, it kind of takes away the enjoyment of it for me, because I want to be able to appreciate what's there. And if it's a mishmash, it's not so pleasant. In India, I love curry, but then they can really get it very, very hot. So you have to sort of say to the waiter or whomever, not so spicy, because theirs are through the roof sometimes. So.
Well, I'll tell you, to a lot of your point here, I don't use condiments. I don't use ketchup. I don't use mustard, and maybe a little mayo, but I wouldn't put it on if it came with it. Barbecue sauce, a little bit different. I enjoy that, but I don't even consider that a condiment. I think that's part of the cooking, because I don't want to change the flavor of what I'm eating. Right. French fries, right. I want to taste the potato. I don't need to taste, vinegar and tomato. but that's just me. Everybody has their own unique palate along the way, right?
Yeah. Anyway, the other Stephen was asking me if I had a poem for today, and I do, but, when you're ready.
Oh, well, let's press the pause button and get to that in a moment. Okay. Because that's part of you. Wonderful poems, by the way, that you've shared with us so far. Why? I don't believe we ever deeply got into why you selected occupational therapy as your career. What intrigued you about it? Was it the physique of the human body? Was it helping people? What really did it for you?
Well, I think at the very beginning of doing the podcast, I might have mentioned it a bit. It was a process of elimination. I'm the youngest of 4 kids in our family, and my 3 siblings went to Oxbridge, meaning Oxford and Cambridge. And with the exception of one brother who studied engineering, none of them came out of the educational experience with any job experience. And I think at first they thought it was a bit morbid, but I was always interested in, what happened to people if they were in an accident or they got a stroke or a nasty disease. What happened to them? And I was always, and it wasn't at the actual accident or surgery or whatever, the point. It was what happened next. And I was always interested about that. And I looked into nursing, and of course this is in England with the National Health Service, which back in those days was pretty awful. But I looked into nursing, and their hours were absolutely horrible. Physical therapy didn't seem to ring any bells with me. I did apply to medical school, but I hadn't done the right prerequisite courses in college, so that didn't fly. But the occupational therapy really kind of seemed to fit the bill. And in our, we were in a small college in Exeter in England, and they had us as the students. We were to run the house where we had, we were staying there in dorms, and we had to do the housekeeping and a certain amount of the cooking and cleaning as part of it. But we often had to either be in a wheelchair or have one arm in a sling or something like that to get the hands-on experience. It was really quite wild, but and of course we had people making sure that we didn't completely make a disaster of the place, but it was a very novel way of learning skills for therapy.
Wow. Was there something there for you that you found exceptionally rewarding about helping people?
I think the adaptation stuff. I know that one thing, my mother was an artist, and she did beautiful needlework and calligraphy and all those kinds of things, because this was after World War II, and in England you had to sort of make things or make do with what you had. And so I learned a lot of that as a child. And in OT, there was one place where, as a student, I was working with a printing press, and we were, and this was with psych patients, so they had to be fairly organized and know what they were doing and how to work the press and come up with things like business cards or letterhead, stuff like that. And knowing that their diagnosis probably distracted their thinking, and trying to have them deal with something practical and tangible and get something useful out of it in spite of what their diagnosis was. And the same with the physical disabilities. You know, if you've had a stroke, you have to learn how to do things one-handed. And it depends on whether it's a right-sided stroke or left, because if the right side is affected, often the speech is affected. And if the left side of the brain is affected, it can give you poor judgment, and you don't necessarily know where that side of your body is in space. So it's learning things like that, and cooking and cleaning and whatever else you have to do in your daily life.
When you think back, Lynette, of all the people that you helped as an occupational therapist, what stands out for you? Any particular cases where you helped somebody move their life forward from point A to point B?
Well, actually, yes, there is one person. I was working down in Galveston as a therapist, and I think it's 7 hospitals on one campus. So we had physical disabilities, we had psych, we had a teenage unit that was dealing with kids who have behavior problems or drug problems and stuff like that. And what we used to do was, with the students that we were training, they used to move from one occupational therapy clinic to another, because there were various of us working in these different units. And there was an older student. She was, I think, in her late 30s, which is unusual. Most of our students were, late teens or early 20s. And at the end of each, I think we did, they would do 6 weeks in each clinic, or 4 weeks, something like that. And the therapist who was their mentor, training them, would do a report and then pass it on to the next clinic. Well, I never seemed to get around to reading the reports. And I had this one lady, unknown to me, she had not done well in the previous clinic. And, of course, that therapist had written up this report that was a bit off kilter. But I didn't read it before she came to work with me. And then she and I really hit it off, and we were able to do a really good experience for her. And she got a lot of things with the patients and learned a lot. And then she said to me, I was on the verge of quitting OT. I just couldn't do it. I was just totally miserable and all the rest of it. And then coming to your clinic, she said to me, it was a whole different experience. So I said, well, that's wonderful. And so after that, I never read the report from the previous therapist until the student had been with me a while, because I knew if I had, it would have biased me, and I would have looked for the wrong things in this person rather than starting from scratch. So that was an experience that I kind of hung on to for a lot of my therapy years, because, one person, not everybody fits into all the different places that an occupational therapist can work.
Wow. Your passion is just amazing. No matter what you do, like seriously, whether it's travel, whether it's OT work, and whether it's poems. And you've shared some of your wonderful poems with us in the past. What's today's poem about?
Well, this is this one I called The Other Big R. And this was an event into rehab for me. So here we go.
Sure.
Rehab. Never thought I'd need it, but left thigh pain left me defeated. Haunting me for months and weeks, doctor scratched his head and seeks an answer to the intermittent menace. Can I stand and walk without a grimace? Off to Washington, D.C. with travel pal Joan. Something's going to happen to you, she'd moan. In Air and Space Museum, I tripped and fell, on all fours and not doing well. Could hardly stand and brought a chair to sit, and into a cab we both did fit. Back at the hotel, a wheelchair is brought, while Joan goes out and a drugstore sought. She buys me a walker in gorgeous blue. Now I can walk again and the city to view. Monuments, galleries, and museums explored. Some of the sights leave us floored. Dinner with friends, not seen for years. Lots of fun, laughter, and no tears. Back to California, safe and sound. And with my walker, I tool around. 3 days later, I'm in the shower. Lift up my foot to wash it with good power. Fly through the air, come crashing down into the tub with broken bone. My left leg is askew. I know it's done. But now what to do? I have no phone. I yell and shout, but no one hears me. For 3 whole days, I'm stuck and all at sea. I try all I can to haul myself out, but that doesn't work. I am too stout to lift myself up with just my arms and see stars of pain. If I move and it harms and makes more damage than already done. This fight is just not yet won. At least I am so close to water and can drink as I know I oughta, keeping warm in the bath and easing pressure off my butt, a rehab measure. The 3rd day comes. We have theater tickets. I know my friend will come and wade through thickets to find the spare key out in the yard. But she can't hear what I say. It's too hard. So goes door to door to find another key. And in she comes to rescue me. Call 911 and here they come to haul me out with much aplomb. So good to lie flat and ease the pain and welcome morphine in my vein. Off to the hospital in the ambulance. No lights and siren because by chance the speed and potholes bounce me too much. And more grief I would endure as such. X-rays are taken. My broken femur shows lots of microfractures and some spots where medicine has damaged bone instead of protecting a precious zone. My friend chooses my room with mountain view. Next morning, a gorgeous sunrise. I knew God is good and I'm in great hands. My surgery is planned, and everyone stands around and asks, how did I survive 3 days in the tub and so successfully thrive? Surgery is inserting a titanium rod inside my femur, and I pray to God it works, as it's scary and real. I know I'm in for quite an ordeal. 2 days post-surgery, and here I stand with my lovely blue walker under each hand. Full weight bearing to my delight, as the toe touch stuff is such a fright. All the therapists come and work with me as they think I am an oddity. To survive such an ordeal, and now I am past it, it doesn't seem real. Then off to rehab, to a place I know. I used to work there, and it's where I go to get good care and lots of therapy until I am quite able to go home free. Rehab? No, it's not booze and drunks and stuff, but exercise, self-care, and all that fluff that we do every day, and it's never enough. To live alone is my goal, and in a wheelchair around I roll. So many friends there again to see. I work hard as exercise is the key. Never knew how hard it is to roll my fat ass, and down the halls I whiz. Night times are another world, with wanderers and shouters all unfold. I master the art of fast treks to the loo. No time to wait for nurses too. My trusty walker is all I need, and it feels so good once I have peed. Not much sleep, so naps fill the gap, and hopefully my energy does not sap. 3.5 weeks later, the day has come when on Halloween I can go home. Lovely to sleep in my bed at last and wade through a box of mail so vast. A couple of months later, I am distressed as I have pains in my right thigh like the rest. X-rays reveal some microfractures that need surgery too, and special factors, so that femur doesn't break through and send me back to rehab, which would be the end of my hard-won independent life, and go through it all again with strife. Lucky for me, it's found in time. Surgery's done, and I am fine to go home again and pick up where I left off. No more facility for rehab for me, I scoff. How could I have done this without my friends who have supported me and made ends meet so well with all their help and prayers? So I appreciate my life and all its layers that lets me live my life independently as I gradually improve both physically and mentally. God's grace to me is so abundant, and my thanks to all is never redundant.
Wow. Lots of questions about that poem. Now, did you actually break your leg?
Did I actually break it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
My gosh. How did you do that?
Well, it was probably a pathological fracture. and the osteoblasts that are supposed to build bone when they're damaged were not working, and that was due to medication I was taking. Beniva, Actonel, another one is Fosamax, to prevent osteoporosis. I didn't have osteoporosis, but I was taking these drugs to prevent it. But it wasn't working. It was making these little microfractures.
My gosh.
And all of a sudden, one day, I lifted my foot up, and the next thing I know, I fell on the bottom of the tub, and the femur was broken.
Oh my gosh. And when you wrote that poem, were you actually on the mend when you did that, or did you write that poem afterwards?
No, I wrote it afterwards.
Gotcha. Yeah. Amazing.
And with the titanium rods in both femurs, I love annoying the TSA at the airport.
Well, they get to see you quite often with the amount of travel that you do. Lynette, thank you so much for being here and sharing that. And you've given me a new appreciation for poems. It's amazing when you think about, with all our technology, everything we have going on in our world, it comes back to one thing: words. Words. Yes. Many of the same words that have been used for, shall we say, thousands of years. It's just it's amazing how it can give you a visual. I picture you, going through that challenge just based on your poem. Just amazing. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate having you on here, and looking forward next time we get a chance to get together.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it too.
Same. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.